Hello again. A daily occurrence at the moment. Is there anything going on in the Hooniverse? Not my favorite title, but there you go. Do you know what? The other day I was teeth and cursing at the potential looting and plundering of great classic Doctor Who treasures when I heard there were doctoring, amending, tinkering with an omnibus of Pyramids of Mars for Tales of the TARDIS. With that memory TARDIS, it still challenges me as a concept. Like I said the other day, Disney Time just had a celebrity just introducing the clips, for God's sake. Do we really need to do this? So were my fears, your fears, realised? What were the edits that were there? Did they hurt? Was it lovingly done? And what is the compulsion to tinker with any masterpiece or classic? Why? What's the reason? As Sutekh bemoans himself at one point in Pyramids of Mars, interference. We have all bought Blu-rays where UFO has been updated, like in the Dalek invasion of Earth, or more recently an amazing Rutan has been upgraded. But is this now a creeping obsession, a determination to improve, to make perfect any blemish? Where does this stop? Camera bumps into Zabi, get rid of that. The mic drops, oh no, can't show that. Shadow of the mic, get rid of that. I mean, do we just change everything? Are we actually seeking perfection? I'm not quite sure what we are really trying to say we want here. And so let's bring in my first kind of credits here, so to speak. So we all know and love the classic, Pyramids of Mars, 75. I was quite shocked. I was going to say 76, but it always shocks me how early it was. I mean, the pictures are iconic, aren't they? The pictures, get rid of me. I mean, you don't want to see me at the moment. I'm ordering it to do that, and it doesn't do it. There you go. So, absolutely, that VHS. Go look at that. Look at that. Oh, honestly, it doesn't need touching, amending. There was nothing about the story I disliked. However, they did go there, and that's what I want the discussion to be about. I mean, I watched it with a notepad, as you'd expect, and I waited and I waited. And yes, I've got bits, and that was my show the other day. So I have to own up to what I was saying. I was saying stop looting the classics, and we had a really good discussion there. And of course, today's show, well, we've got a lot of discussion points. I mean, Sutekh's now a Titan. We need to look at that, don't we? But yeah, he's up. Why is it RTD up the stakes again? I mean, Sutekh is hard enough to defeat, but now he's a Titan. I mean, really, and it's going to be sorted in 35 minutes because remember we need the 10 minutes at the end when they have dinner and chat and stuff. So I'm going to say hello to the thread any moment now, but I'll just kind of bookend myself. So basically, is that the 7th Tales of the TARDIS? I think now. It was the one with the least bookending, wasn't it? I mean, there was hardly anything from Shooty and Millie, really. I'm not quite sure why they were there. You know, we had the usual start with all the different intros. We had that sequence again with the TARDIS approaching the screen. And then we got them. I mean, if somebody hasn't seen this, I'll go big screen just so you can see. Sat on the floor around Jodie's TARDIS. What is this? We're worshipping the worst era. Oh well, whatever. Anyway, Millie looking very nice, really, and just saying, but you've done it before, trying to reassure the Doctor, who, as you guess, can't imagine how he can ever beat anybody. So that's where we got to. So before I do examples, and by God, I've got a few, and they're not all good. You know, hello, Referee Noble, as somebody's just said. So, hello, Nintendo PlayStation. Hello, Sadako24. Great to see you, Rob. What's the intro? What's interesting? I know I tried to do a 60s vibe because I'm aware that when I started, it had to be a tunnel sequence because I'm a Doctor Who fan. And in the end, you think, don't be so literal, Brendan. You know, have a nice kind of, you know, saloon bar, kind of chilled, Bond-esque, Randall and Hopkirk deceased vibe. And it should say, it normally does what the copyright is because I've paid for it. But I'll get you that. I'll put them up. I keep meaning to put the names up, so I'll get to that. But it's lovely, isn't it? I play it all the time. Paul Tozen, I'm too scared to watch it yet. In fear, it'll kill the story. The thread will help you. Hopefully, I'll help you because you know we'll all be fair. Doug Sims, good to see you again. I feel I really like the theme music and credits. I know, I mean, some people, I get critics who say, oh, you're that show that does a 2-minute intro. Ugh. And I'm thinking, look, people are listening to this when they're jogging. People are listening to this at different times of the day. I personally like to bookend a show. I know you can just start the show with you talking, and I'm not knocking that, but that's just me. I suppose if you don't like it, you just wait for 2 minutes, don't you? Sadako24, it just baffles me that anyone thought pyramids even needed editing or changing. And we'll talk about the details. So tell me which bits irritated you or bits that you accepted, I'm now called a referee. Good to see you, referee Brendan. Yes, I will have my yellow. Well, I have a yellow card for Sean every Sunday, don't I? The Daleks in colour I referenced in my last show because I was concerned. The concern is not in the same way. That obviously was a 7-episoder and I had to squash it into 75 minutes. This was different, but that doesn't mean we give it an easy pass. Yes, I saw Ian Levine's comments, Sadako. Ian Levine got a lot of nasty, snarky comments just for objecting to the changes. Some fans seem strangely sycophantic to the idea that all change is good. I've got a different set of questions, actually, Sadako, and you heard some of them at the beginning. What is this compulsion with this generation to change anything? And I think there's some more insidious messaging, possibly, even if Pyramids of Mars, we might suggest, just about got away with it in this one. But I'm open to suggestions from you all. Afternoon, says PB Props. The re-edit of this is purely a marketing thing for Bad Wolf. They can claim ownership of this version. I know. And this is where we need a good discussion today, folks, because it was a light airbrush to a degree, but there's a few touches that I think are problematic. It's a bit like when RTD, in his first iteration, got his hands on the Doctor Who show, and he did little changes that we kind of bought overall because he relaunched it successfully. But when you look back, as I keep saying, the seeds of destruction were there, that because he's played on them more and more, and I think they're doing it with the same here. Doug, yes, I don't know this. We don't get Tales of the TARDIS here in Australia. I'm curious to hear if Pyramids of Mars was enhanced or destroyed. Right. Well, I am open-minded as much as anybody can be. I don't come on here just to do a rant. I don't think my thread are like that. We all have opinions. I think it's going to be an interesting one for you, Doug, to hear where we are on this. I've got loads of examples any minute, but I'm just being fair to the thread to say hello. One thing is, my glasses are here and I'm trying not to wear them. And so Claude, I think it is, afternoon, can only be here for 10 minutes. Oh, gosh. But I have a question. If Sutekh got into the TARDIS in Wild Blue Yonder, was he duplicated when the TARDIS was duplicated in the Giggle? The salt caused the problem at the end of the universe. Why did the David Tennant Doctor even think that salt was going to delay anybody? I mean, which monsters who were chasing you suddenly just want to count salt granules? Anyway, I thought the big problem was the Giggle. I thought the Giggle was when it all started. I do know that in Wild Blue Yonder, we had the war song, and therefore there was maybe something wrong then. So the chronology I'm trying to work out, but in the Giggle, it was a sledgehammer of the second TARDIS, which the Doctor took, this fantasy target, which I think opened up all the fantasy god nonsense. I'm trying to apply logic to fantasy. You can't do it unless it's Tolkien and he gives you a map at the beginning of the book, or Game of Thrones where you have a map and all the rest of it. Whereas in this case, take your guess. Anyway, if you only consider first 10 minutes, tune in later because we go through loads of examples and we will be fair. B-Man, I can't find a way to see Tales of TARDIS outside the UK. Right, well, we'll help you. I've got screenshots and everything. PB Props, I saw a bit of it, but was I correct that they added in music cues? Oh, yes. The Logopolis one? Right. So Hartnell's Ghost, hi to you. I'm just saying hi now. Right. And John has joined us. He's on his lunch break and he was on another stream last night and they were talking about Tales of the TARDIS, so he might have a lot to say. And Pyramids of Mars, I think I'm right in saying, John, is your favourite Doctor Who. So he's going to be my expert who's going to feed into the thread when he can. So I think we should start with the first item. And I was texting John last night and he had a problem with this. Let's start now. I'll minimize myself. I know my place. There we go. So as we bookend in this Tales of the TARDIS, and they're only on the screen for about 2 minutes, he says, right, I've got to start. It starts in Egypt where an Englishman, oh, I notice we're all devolved now. We've really got to go into, English, Scots, Irish, Welsh. Interesting. The RTD wants to do that, where an Englishman was looting the tombs of the pharaohs. Right. Now, panel, so I say panel, thread, you tell me what you think of this. Jamie, my partner, was apoplectic about this. I know John Yulden is not happy about this. I didn't like the choice of the verb looting. I just thought it was highly subjective and actually easy pickings for a progressive script. But when you look at it, I find this very problematic. Why did we say Englishman? I'm not quite sure why we had to be that specific nationally, unless RTD's turned into a nationalist now. I didn't think that was progressive, but there you go. So where an Englishman was looting the tombs of the pharaohs, because when we had Empire, the Scottish did an awful lot too, but I don't like to split the blooming thing up. But RTD does. He's divisive, it sounds like to me. So where an Englishman, problem number one, unnecessary that. The second one, I want to know what you all think, was looting the tombs of the pharaohs. Now, fascinating point. The British Museum would not be open if basically they weren't allowed to loot. If you get my gist. The other thing is, what actually is looting? And I'm an English teacher. I'm not convinced on this one. Looting is when you just nick, isn't it? Nick for your own kind of, for money, to melt down, to do whatever. And we know with most of the proper pyramids, they were looted by people from that country and just nicked, right? The looting he's talking about is an Englishman. I suppose we'll have to stick with this now. He obviously hates the English. The Englishman was taking relics back to his mansion. But was he taking them back to his mansion after he was possessed by Sutekh? Because half those sarcophagi had mummies in. I didn't see, was that the reason? Or is he a private collector? So the looting is a moot point. I don't know why we needed to go there on a classic and start to impose the first bit of politics of the day, but he decided to do that. So, looting. I also think, if you don't mind, and I'll go halfy screen here because, Noble's refereeing here, can I just say, it takes one to know one. You're looting the classic Doctor Who treasures and imprinting your own fingerprint. You're imprinting your own kind of politics, your own kind of viewpoint, your own version of what should look perfect on a classic. And you're trying to do a line saying somebody else is looting. Oh, how rich. There's lots of versions of looting, actually, script writer. You could be looting a Doctor Who treasure and doctoring it according what you think is acceptable. Taking an original masterpiece text of British television and playing with it. Is that looting? Is that plundering? Is that vandalizing? So I do have problems with it. I didn't think I had. I mean, I saw it and went, oh, here we go. But the more I think about it, the more I think, how dare you? Right, before I move on to my next point, let's see what you all think. Might as well do them item by item, eh? There will be praise as well, by the way. I am fair on this. I think we got away with some. XXM, while we're at it, yes, I'm going to be watching Empire of Death at midnight because there'll be spoilers all over the place. No, I'm wondering why I'm bothered about spoilers, but anyway, the series has maybe been spoiled. Paul thinks when you watch this 2005 series, it doesn't hold up. I haven't looked at it for ages, I'll be honest with you. We did do a review of Rose a couple of months back. Yes, John's agreeing that I got it right. He does think it's a cracker, so I'll be interested in what you all think. Right. So, Sadako on this looting, it has a nasty tone, yes, and goes against the Doctor's usual admiration for. Yes, archaeology was the word. And I think actually Marcus Scarman was an archaeologist. But now we're calling them looters. I'll be waiting for the British Museum to be shut by these progressives. And when we get a Labour government, I'll be waiting for this British Museum to be shut because we'll be handing everything back. I'd like to see every country hand everything back. I don't know why we have to be first because we have to be the pious, pompous idiots. But yeah, you can see the start of it with all this tripe of dialogue. PB props. It's okay. Englishmen are fair game these days. We're always the bad guys. I find this fascinating. When the Brexit debate happened, it doesn't matter what side you're on, we're all British for crying out loud. But when we had the big Brexit referendum, that's when we started to get this English Welsh thing, and the argument really kind of got venom in it. And now I find that obviously, RTD is on the Remain side, staunch Remain side, and obviously hatred of Brexit side. You saw that in years and years. And so therefore, Englishmen are fair game. Those English who hate the world, don't simplify an argument that is way beyond your politics, mate. Just don't go there. You're a writer of superficial, light touch drama. Just get your framing right, mate. XSM. I don't think I could sit through series 1 to 10 binge to binge. No, I'd have to get quite picky and pick and mix episodes that I know like. Oh yeah, yeah. John Yulden, they just can't help themselves, can they? If it wasn't for British museums, a lot of these historical items would have been sold or destroyed. And that's the point. If you really want to go into the politics, you need to do the context. So quite right, John. I actually forgot to say that. Quite right. Oh, it's so easy to sit on your little typewriter keyboard and type away going, oh, yeah. Oh, this is virtue signaling of the worst case, isn't it? Oh, it's looting. It's those English. They ruin the world, you know. Right, okay. And as John says, some of those treasures would have been lost forever. We didn't exactly just nick stuff and wreck it. And by the way, Doctor Who fans, while I'm on this, same logic. We have private collectors of Doctor Who missing episodes. Are they looters? Is RTD declaring war on them? And I bet you he's seen some of them. Really? Are we going there? Looting is such a pejorative word, and we Doctor Who fans hear rumours that there are private collectors out there who have grabbed the one and only copy, and they'll show it to their mateys to show off, and we'll never see them, and they'll never sell them to the BBC or give them back. So when you're talking about looting, you know, we could get close to home. Are you looting the classic Doctor Who archives just to put your fingerprint on it, as PB Prop said? Are you really wanting to call out some of the private collectors in Doctor Who? What are you doing? Because it's too easy. Rachel, good to see you. She's having a break in between all her streams. Have you got to 1K yet, Rachel? I think she has. I'm sure she has, because she was going like gambusters. Always check her channel out. But I never thought the professor was looting. Yeah, I didn't. He was an archaeologist. Doctor Who loves archaeologists. I think I said in one of our streams, a story when it starts with archaeology, like the Earth Shock. That's classic Doctor Who. Archaeology, Tomb of the Cybermen. Let's not have a Tales of the TARDIS of Tomb of the Cybermen. They were looting. Oh, honestly. Silence in the Library, the same again. And I must admit, if you think of it, Silence in the Library there was getting money involved and all the rest of it. Why is there such a sneering contempt for anybody not called RTD? And as Noodle Arms quite rightly says, many Egyptian people looted them long before we turned up. Quite right. Let's do history, shall we? Let's do history. Not the media lovies who seem to kind of read half a page. I'm an English teacher and a history teacher, and the absolute tripe that is said in this country on the news by the lovies who say that this isn't taught. That yes, it is. You need to open your eyes, do some research, and not thinking because you've got an Oxford University degree that gets you a rubber stamp straight into the BBC that you know what the hell you're talking about. If you're very clever, ask some hard questions of our politicians at the moment, because you're giving them all an easy time. All you're bothered about is the opinion polls. Hello. Politics degree, Brendan. So honestly, media lovies, do your media stuff, but if you want to get into politics, as I said, RTD, get on a soapbox and stand for Parliament. Other than that, shut up. PB Props, what's always got me about the series since 2005 is that it never appears that anyone said to the showrunners that they've had some seriously bad naff ideas. How does this stuff even get made? We're all asking this question about this series. Rachel was on my stream, and she's done streams on this as well, where we show the worst 7 of the worst 8 episodes have been this season. This is statistically the worst season of Doctor Who ever. And as I showed you in one of the earlier saloons, in an interview, he said, nobody questions me. I wouldn't work with people who question me. Wow. Well, I don't know what job. I mean, everybody gets questioned all the time, and yeah, but you might be a pain sometimes, but it works in the end. And actually, don't we all like to work in a collective? And if he's a progressive, isn't he kind of on the socialist side of things? And everybody teams up. Of course, when you get people lecturing to you, you only have to wait 5 seconds, scratch the surface, and you see the hypocrisy. Susan Twist says, Doug Stims appeared before salt sprinkling. I'm thinking whatever has been set in motion happened before Wild Blue Yonder. You might be right. This is the problem. Are you really going to watch Wild Blue Yonder 10 times, the giggle 10 times? It's, you know, I mean, I know we've got to look at the sequencing, and I will one day again, but right. Have we had enough to say about the looting? By the way, let me just take a chill pill. And as I take the chill pill, if somebody has just discovered us, and it is possible, the target was 700. We've gone past it. So I thank you all. I should give you a round of applause and thank you. I'll turn that number to 8. But please, if you haven't subscribed, come on, join the gang. Shall we start with the next item for good or bad? And you can tell me what you think. It was this one. And actually, Rachel, you were texting me about this as well. The dialogue was at the end of Tales of the TARDIS this time. And so Ruby's talking to the Doctor, and the yellow bit is what she says. You've got to know something we can use against him, Doctor. You've got to know something. I believe in you because we're beautiful people. And then he says that Sutekh was the size of a man, and he's now evolved into a Titan. Okay, bit of dialogue. Brendan, are you really finding a problem with that? Well, I am an English teacher, you know, give me a chance. No, Titans. Why? When Sutekh is so difficult to defeat in the first place, why are we now making it harder? 45 minutes is tantamount to 2 episodes of Classic Who. Sutekh was all over Pyramids of Mars from really, well, I mean, obviously he'd set everything up in part 1, but we only kind of discovered him really as we moved into part 2. So if I'm being fair in a funny sort of way, we have to deal with him for 3 episodes. RTD is going to do it in 45, but of course, let's be honest, let's pull back a bit because we'll have the hug fest, the tears and the crying and all that stuff at the end, all the slushy stuff when Ruby Sunday gets trapped in their time window. See my predictions one, you know the score. Yeah, I've just done one on the predictions, and I call it out with the time window. It's going to be a time flight. She's going to go disappears. So when you've got all this stuff to solve, you now throw in via Tales of the TARDIS that he's now bigger and he's now a Titan. So how are you going to solve that? And of course, he'll show you the Armageddon shots. You've seen them. You'll show the end of the world. You'll see everybody's dying. And then suddenly, like a press of a button or the click of a switch, a special subwave frequency on the time window, some reverse the polarity of some neutron flow. You can do something to attach the TARDIS to the time window, and then yeah, something like that. And by the way, did you notice it made sense what I said then? It makes as much sense. Yes, if I said that, but I said honey and baby at the end, do you think I would sound like the 15th Doctor? So basically, reverse the neutron, baby, honey, and bang, and she's died. And that's basically the end of the episode. I think I'm up for this. It's a shame I don't fit the DEI criteria. Rachel, my acting's good, isn't it? I was in the moment. Anyway, the Titan. Has anyone got a problem with the Titan? I know the first time when I see Titan, I think of the Clash of the Titans. I don't know. I'm just saying. Let's have a look. John Yulden. After the ratings this season, RTD should be told to shut up, rein it in, and focus on making engaging sci-fi. The trouble is, John, the BBC have never understood sci-fi. The BBC don't know what to do with sci-fi. The BBC, because they're all of a certain ilk, I don't think when they did their little elite schools and private schools and Eton and that they actually read much sci-fi. Then they go to Oxford and Cambridge because obviously it's a shoe-in and it's an entitlement. And basically, once they're there, they're not reading sci-fi. And then, of course, they get into the BBC Lovey world and they've not read sci-fi. What they do, bit like Sutekh, sitting on, joyriding on the TARDIS, they joyride on the back of other people's work. That's what happens. Right. Yep. As Rachel says, that's her out of a job. um, so yes, well, as you can see, we're subbing to get Rachel to 1K. I'm sure she's got there. I'm trying to get to 800 now, as I joked with her, but I know they're all jokes. These are all people, and we appreciate it. We love it, and thanks for joining us today. Paul Tosland, I imagine there'll have been serious talks before. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. The trouble is this stupid idea to do 2 series before you get any feedback. That's the utter stupidity of the media lovies. Now, Rachel, I knew she'll have been checking on this. And how does being a Titan equate to Egyptian mythology and being right? Rachel, give me a moment. Thread, give me a moment. I've got a slide on this, and there was an edit. And yeah, if you think of what Rachel's just said, and then I'll show you the edit, you go, what are you up to? XSM, I just think that don't turn Sutekh into a Davros. And keep pretending to kill him only to bring him back 2 seasons later. What do lots of fans say at the moment? Our worries are more to do with please don't leave us to old Who is what a lot of people say. I mean, I do watch New Who, but a lot of people who've checked out say leave me with my classic Who, but don't you dare retcon it. Paul has got a prediction. Is it on my prediction show? I have a prediction for series 2. RTD will have written an anti-Israel episode. I'm trying to think if the timings would get there. Series 3, probably. But it won't make any sense in 20 years. Do you know what? On all these edits I'm going to show you, and all this kind of revisionism, if you don't like the fact that they're an archaeologist in Egypt, if you don't like various little bits like that, and there's a few things I'm dying to show you. Oh my God, the RTD2 era will be butchered in 20 years because obviously as times move on, they'll be going, you can't mention that, you can't mention that, what the hell's that? And now his episodes aren't that long anyway. And if you take the 10 minutes of hugging out, they're down to about 30 odd minutes. And if you take all the problematic stuff in 20 years, gosh, it's like bite-sized Doctor Who. Don't set a precedent. Leave alone. Be grown up. XSM. They should show how powerful Sutekh is and make this threat super serious for the Doctor, like destroying his TARDIS and then the Doctor's trapped. Oh, don't. Do you really want the Doctor, Rose Noble, and all those, Millie, if she's still around, stuck on 2024 Earth the way RTD wants it to be? Get away. Run to the hills. Leave the universe. But the moment I'd say, please go into E-space, I'm sure there's no issues in E-space. I mean, look at you. So I don't know. Right. So the Titan thing is a problem because RTD, as per blooming usual, Mr. Hyperbole himself, has upped the stakes. And now, how the hell do you defeat a Titan? He's making it hard for himself, but of course he'll be very clever and shooty at the right moments. Will be going bing, bing, bing. But I'm concerned about this shot of him on another planet. How does he get on another planet when all this chaos is going on? Does he nick David Tennant's TARDIS? Is this why we've got 2 TARDISes in London? One has got Sutekh sitting on it, and it looks like Harriet Harbinger's inside. So he needs to go back to Donna Noble's garden. It just so happens David Tennant's out. It's a shame. Should have organised, made an appointment. So he nicks his TARDIS to go to this planet where there's this woman sat on a toadstool, little Miss Muffet, who says, here, this is a special quartz thing that if ever Sutekh appears, I've been told to wait. I'm actually the one who waits. That, or it's Susan. Because I don't think Susan will have stuck with David. Please. And because it's the future, she would have flown off. These are all my predictions on my prediction show. And she'll end up on some far-flung planet, and she might come back to help the Doctor, you know, two Time Lords, if you want to treat it like that. And then, of course, she gets defeated and killed, so she regenerates. So we see a bit of Caroline Ford, and she changes. I'm giving you all the tidbits. So, Titans, what about this one then? Let's have a laugh. Are you pleased that's changed? The hand of Omega's gone. The man who tickles his fancy all those years he was waiting. I mean, what did you think? Did you think, oh, bless him. I mean, he needed somebody to cheer him up, and, you know, sitting on that throne must have been killer. Yeah, God, the cramp. And so, of course, there must have been moments when, you know, somebody tickled his fancy. But that's all been taken away. So what a shame. The hand of Omega is no more. Goldfinger is no more. But anyway, they've taken the hand away. I mean, God, honestly, these are like the thought police. These are like the cheer police. These are killjoys. Never mind cosmic joyrides. Kill. Oh, did the hand really bother you? Every time I watched Pyramids of Mars, I kind of looked out for it, and it didn't ruin the fact I was in the moment. I don't think the hand is one of those moments when you go, oh gosh, I can't deal with this anymore. It's absolutely ruined the show. Are they really going to go back to the web planet, and when the camera goes flying into one of the Zarbi, they're going to get rid of all that? I mean, come on. It was called 60s and 70s TV. I find it really, really kind of, I don't know, adorable to watch, really. Yeah, Rachel says, leave the hand in. You know, Sutekh needed something to entertain him. We have puppets on our show. That hand, actually, they could have given the hand to me. Could have gone up one of the puppets. XSM, that's always confused me. A blooper they kept in just for, yeah, I know. Oh, why ruin everything? Honestly. PB props, yeah. Well, you make props. I mean, you know, that there's a possibility that, yeah, I don't know. They may have taken something suitable away. Cybermat Strikes think Verada see-through is Susan, so that's why my theory is that if she comes back just to do this brilliant scene, you know, RTD says she's in a brilliant scene, and she's a phenomenal actress. Well, you would say that about anybody who's in 60s Who, because, you know, we're fans, you know, so I'm kind of going with this adjective. Then, but she can't be in it forever. So basically, she gets damaged by taking a lot of the Sutekh vortex energy crap. Remember, this is, I did a show yesterday about how RTD's formula is always the same. It'll be some energy that you can push one way, trap behind some time window glass, but a lot of it radiates and kills Susan. It'll be something like that. Baby says the best part of showing this episode is how the Doctor is supposed to act, how alien he is compared to Shooty. I'm not saying a word yet. Oh yeah, you're going to go, what? Why change a habit of a lifetime? Hartnell's Ghost. I hope Capaldi is persuaded to film a shower scene, and his opening dialogue is, that was some effing nightmare. Well, I think a lot of fans do say a version of that, but it's not going to happen, is it? Doug Sims, in the finale, some mysteries will be solved by unsatisfactory, rushed exposition. There will be a lot of running around. Doug, I'd have a bit of running around. I thought that Legend of Ruby Sunday was one of the most static theatrical productions of Doctor Who. You had 3 sets, and the Doctor stood still a lot, and lots of words. I mean, I might as well go to the West End. Honestly, if you really think about it, where's all the money going in there? I mean, it was just static. So anyway, that was a laugh. TARDIS Treasures, as I put a tweet out. See what you think of this one. This might get you going in good and bad. It just gets us thinking fast. Pyramids of Mars takes... it's quite jarring. The music isn't as good. The added early Sutekh reveal. Yeah, I know, in episode 1. Saw him straight on, full on, didn't you? CGI TARDIS and then no CGI TARDIS, I know. I was wondering, are you changing it all the way through? Oh, no, you're not. Extra landing bounce, and that's the first 5 minutes. I'll stick to the original if you don't mind. Yeah, did anyone have any major problems with that? I'll tell you a couple, and then I'll come to the thread. So you are on fire today, and while you're on fire, if you haven't subscribed, get firing on that button. You know, you know, we always joke about RTD does the reset button. I'm going to make a slide. Forget about the reset button. What about the subscribe button? I'm going to try and get some jingle going. Some of the dialogue, can I just mention? In the bookend bit at the beginning, Shooty's Doctor said I was a different man then. Too right. He defeated Sutekh by the skin of my teeth. Yeah, okay. And he tells Ruby Sunday Sarah Jane Smith was amazing, just like you, baby. He didn't say baby, just like you, just like you. Oh, why are we doing this? Sarah Jane Smith is one of the top companions, and you see, this is the filter I can't stand. I'm not knocking Millie Gibson, and I'm not knocking Ruby Sunday. She needs to develop that role. Okay, Sarah Jane developed hers as a Lynn. But please don't start doing this doctor saying you are almost like my best companion. Just no, leave it alone. That dialogue is completely unnecessary. And again, a bit like Sutekh on the TARDIS, you are trying to joyride onto the classic Who to try and say we are the same. Yeah, well, we will be the judge of that. You don't judge your own books. You don't mark your own homework, if you don't mind. So I didn't like that. Butt out. When we talk about some of these strange additions and that TARDIS Treasures was talking about, yes, the Logopolis music. And I thought the Logopolis music came in when he was asked where he was from. You know, when he's trapped by Sutekh. And there was an edit in there, which I'm going to mention in a moment. But actually, the music was Logopolis. And just like the Daleks in colour, when they mentioned they had cloister bells and the word exterminate and various other things, I could say loads. Why? Why are we trying to do it? I really don't think there's I don't think there's much wrong with Pyramids of Mars. I don't. If you want to amend one tiny little bit, yeah, all right, if you want to, if you feel the need. But why are we adding Logopolis music? Now, it was mentioned earlier, Mind of Evil music. I didn't know if I heard that, but, you know, hello, I was trying to gather loads of stuff. So, yes, I had a problem with that. Let's have another look at another one. Here's an example. A lot of part 4 was butchered, right? I was following a transcript of the whole script from the start of part 1 all the way through. So I wasn't really watching Tales of the TARDIS. I was monitoring all the dialogue. There were 1 or 2 lines that were played with, but what these were sections just completely taken out. And yes, as we predicted the other day, it was mostly part 4. So you've got that swirling red energy visible on the columns. Sutekh thinks I sense danger. There's a relay switch. Marcus Scarman has to kind of do it all. Sutekh still kind of the overlord directing him. That was all taken out. I'll see what you think about that. This from Gary Lee. And this is what I mean. There's so many different levels. When they see fit to cut Sarah's innocent line at the beginning when she's wearing Victoria's dress, so long as it wasn't Albert's, and she's just been daft, isn't she? And they took that out. I mean, what is going on? Are we not allowed a sense of humour now? So I'll ask you your opinion on that. Is that innocent? Is that called okay revisionism because you can't joke that wearing a dress, a man wearing a dress? You know, are we going there? Are we really going into this trans debate? I mean, no, she was just joking because everybody says. With the historical era, Victoria and Albert. It's, you know, the synonymous is like Laurel and Hardy, Victoria and Albert. And so she's just, oh, for God's sake. So my first one was in part 4 when there's all the puzzles and Sutekh's trying to get to them fast. That was taken out. You've got, as Gary Lee says, an innocent line. Do you think it was a fair cop? Then we had these special effects. And so if you haven't seen it, this is the... you can see the special effect coming through. The Sutekh head moved a little bit more than the original, I think. Am I right in thinking that? The actual head moved a bit. I didn't think it did in the original. Okay. And then I'll just come to this one and then I'll see what you've been thinking in the thread. And then at Sutekh's tomb, when he's just been released, they took all this out. Sutekh, I've won my freedom, Horus. Your curse is lifted. Now begins the reign of Sutekh the Destroyer. I shall crush this miserable world and hurl it into the... all that was taken out. So that the threat of him was taken out. So if I just kind of right myself and bring myself back into the equation, and we'll actually see what you're saying so far about some of these things. Okay. Pure historical. Was Benjamin Cook trying to be funny with using radio telescope music? The music, I loved that organ music in the original, but it was just too much. It was too much. It ended up being organ grinding, not organ music. Right, Rachel, it wasn't butchered to smithereens, but it wasn't great either. They left the poacher in. Hallelujah. We were really worried about that, weren't we? Overall, it's worth the watch if you're interested, but it's a dumbed down version of it. The thing is, Rachel, I'm going to ask soon, why did they even bother touching it? I mean, really? I mean, and why for the sake of 20 minutes on telly? Why? Why? It's a bit like saying a masterpiece, an art a masterpiece, and somebody goes, well, it's actually a masterpiece partly because although this painter was very good at it, there's a mistake there, and and he kept it in. Well, you could make it perfect if you want, but that would be sacrilege. What are we never allowed to talk about popular culture in the same way? Are we just never allowed to do that because we're TV people, it's low lives? I just think it's sacrilege to do that. Just leave it. Anthony Parkinson seems on the right path. RTD enjoys tainting Classic Who by association with his tat. I think this is the problem, is trying to do linkage, is trying to kind of park your tanks on Classic Who. And it is. I find it really weird that we've got Sutekh sitting on the TARDIS when actually it's an analogy for what RTD is doing to Classic Who. He's starting to suffocate it. He's like the nesting consciousness. He's got a web right round the TARDIS, right round our archives, and he's getting his claws in everywhere. I mean, if you really think about it, that's what he's doing. And he's going, we've done a loving version of Pyramids of Mars. Yeah, but you've put that progressive line in. You've taken that line out because it might affect people and sound transphobic. You've done that bit. You've made him a Titan. You've done this. And before you know it, you have really changed the concept of Sutekh and the vibe and the feel of Pyramids of Mars. Nesting consciousness. B-Man. Did you see Doctor Who actress Alex Kingston slam? Yes, I did. Good for her. Good for her. We need people like this. That's brave to do. Peter Davison's been brave, and they've tried to cancel him. He's too big to cancel, and people like him. So tough. You see, people like them. Alex Kingston, another. She must feel. Well, I just say brave and good on her. I applaud her. I'm not going to make a big thing of Matt Smith doing they, and all the rest of it. I know some of the streams make a big thing of every time somebody does he, she, or something. But, good on Alex Kingston. That's all I'll say. I'll praise the people who are doing the fight. Yeah, episode 4 says Rachel cut a lot out, which I expected. And we did say we kind of knew that would happen. And if you just want to make it faster, I suppose that would be seen as the bit of fat that you could take out. But it did make it feeling rushed. It just, they kind of respected mostly what happened at the mansion. So yes, you had a better build up, but then it was like bing. Maybe Rachel, this is exactly what you're going to see on Saturday. So yes, I can see Laser has said yes. Well, lots of people are starting to XSM, it's just like music, particularly dance music. They keep bringing out new versions and remixes and interpolation. 9x out of 10 people will still always go prefer the originals. I know, and look, I'm, don't leave me this way. There's loads of songs that your parents are going. There's an original to that, but you like this new version. That's a generational thing, but I think permission has to be given in those cases. And I think you have to pay some rights. And I think you have to have a relationship in some financial or greed way with the original. I think Madonna had to pay ABBA for those few bars. There is a kind of respect there in music. In TV, nothing. So Cyberman Strikes agrees with me. The head did seem to animate a bit more. Sadako24, I always assumed the joke was that the Doctor meant Victoria Waterfield and Sarah thought he meant the Queen. Okay. But why take it out? Why take it out? Yeah, people are agreeing with me. I did think there was more. I wasn't much animation, but there was. To the man born repeat. I find it funny what they're repeating, the BBC, when you think, really. We'll show the show where it's all about people with money. To be fair, the original 4 episodes are on iPlayer, so viewers can compare and contrast the various dialogue and music edits. I know Hartnell's Ghost, and I know you kind of have been agreeing with me and us, but I just don't know why waste your media creativity on just dusting over some of the classic treasures. Why bother? John Yulden's liking this so far. It's because we agree, isn't it, John? Let's be honest. We agree on what we're saying here. I'm sure you are. So I didn't watch a chat. She's just asking us because straight after that, talking Doctor Who, I think it was David Tennant. It's a repeat, isn't it, of what was shown in November time. No. Did you watch the David Tennant Doctor Who documentary after that? It's an interesting watch with what the actors say with regards to what their doctor is, who the doctor is, how they studied him for it. I did a review of that, not on this channel, on my previous format, and I found I had problems with it, Rachel. I'll have to try and remember them while we're doing this. So, what else did we notice? Well, this whole section from part 4 was taken out, and of course, when we were discussing this the other day, we kind of guessed it would be this sort of material. But when you see that chunk taken out and you see it on screen, yeah, that all of that was gone. Sarah's prison is steaming up on the outside. The doctor writes relax on it. I can't do it. I can't do it. You know, you had that moment when he didn't know how he could save Sarah. Just a little bit of jeopardy between our two leading stars of the show, but let's cut it out. And as Rachel said, therefore, it just feels so fast. And then you've got the whole thing about, you know, that the challenge about how to get her out of that situation. All that was gone. So I'll be interested in what you think about that. Is that fair cop? Now, Rachel, you said earlier about the Titans and the Egyptian mythology, and this is the quote I was promising. This quote was taken out. The doctor says the wars of the gods entered into mythology. The whole of Egyptian culture is founded upon the Osirian pattern. And that line was taken out. And you know, you sometimes think, are you up to mischief, RTD? Is this because you're going to tell us Sutekh isn't a siren? Or, you know, what are you doing here? It's just, as I say, we had that lovely link with Egyptian mythology. And Rachel's got a whole stream. Oh, was it about 5-6 weeks ago on the Pantheon of Gods? And she did a lot of research on that. And this seems to be going, we're going to change the rules. I don't know what you think, Rachel. It just seems to be slightly changing things. Cybermat strikes here. It feels like RTD has undermined the Egyptian Osiris linkages. I wonder if the mummies are back. Oh, the trouble is, I have to keep saying no now as a reactive, instinctive thing. Sadako24, the doctor should have tested the truth, lies, mummies by asking them, was the timeless children any good? What is the truthful answer? Laser. I'm sorry, I'm being cheeky, aren't I? I think these skeleton people are the alternative to the mummies. Yeah, zombies. PB props. When the doctor travelled back down the tunnel, did they use a frame grab from slightly later in the scene for that? I don't remember the perspective being correct in the original version. The zombie doctor. I've got a shot. Let me just sort myself out while you ask me that one. The zombie doctor. I haven't got the shot of the zombie doctor, but if we're talking about this, aren't we? But later on. I thought it was a funny angle of the doctor. I did feel as though it had been a screenshot of when Tom Baker is stood maybe in the mansion and his eyes are looking up. It had a funny angle to it. Is that what you mean? Because I thought that at the time. I only took these two screen grabs quickly to reinforce my point. Is that what you mean? XSM, yeah, it would be crappy CGI mummies too, I bet. You see, is big budget meaning you don't get things in front of you? Because, look, I'm no big Star Wars beastie, but I do like watching them. And we all know the issue. The original trilogy, you mostly had proper models and you had proper sets. And then there's, George Lucas did start playing with it, didn't he? It was his toy. And once he had the CGI possibilities, he started touching those trilogies up. Some would argue he made them a bit better, but he's setting the precedent that Doctor Who now does and everybody else does, which is to touch up. That Rutan could be better. That Dalek UFO in Dalek Invasion Earth could be a bit better. And we start touching up. And my argument in a minute, and I'm going to ask you all what you think, Is this a creeping mission statement till in the end we just want to look at perfection, but then charm goes? 60s TV, 70s TV, and 80s TV suddenly loses its charm because the 2024 nesting consciousness put their perfectionism on it. Be interested what you think. I wasn't going to say all this when I started this stream. you just get thinking, going, do you know, this is ridiculous. Let's have a look. See what you're all saying. What's getting you riled? Pure historical. Sutekh equals the timeless siren. Oh, don't. Oh, you might be a foundling. Rachel, yes, quite a while ago when they announced that Maestro. Yeah, that's when you did the Pantheons of God stream. Anthony Parkinson, only 10 hours to another dollop of disappointment. Rachel, I didn't notice the line was taken out, but I feel like the mention of the sirens was brushed over, so maybe it wasn't mentioned at all. Well, I will have made a mistake, Rachel, out of all, for the whole thing, but I kept stopping. I was ruining it for my partner. I kept saying, hold on, I've got to pause. I've got to screenshot that. So I was trying my best, and I'm sure I didn't see that line. Anthony Parkinson, cynically and maybe rightly, is saying it's just a way of flogging Blu-rays. PB Props, I don't mind the updates so much as long as they're fit. I like the new tunnel effect, but all this is done really for modern day marketing syndication. Yeah, I think we can kind of say, that bit's all right, that bit's all right. I think when we start to have a problem is just it's the language change and it's the the angle you're looking at it from. So we've looked at these pieces. They took the Doctor cursing Sutekh when he's a strong, heroic lead, and when Sutekh says what he's going to do, the Doctor, knowing that he can, as he's threatened, I can shred your nervous system into a million fibers. He says, I curse you, Sutekh, in the name of all nature. You are a twisted abhorrence, knowing he's going to get knacked. Yeah. And that's taken out. So our male lead being strong and saying, arguing for right, even though he knows he's going to be punished, very heroic, is taken out. I wonder if it just jars too much. I don't know. With having the 15th Doctor with his tears and Ruby Sunday, I can't think straight without you being here and all that stuff. I just wonder whether it's just such a juxtaposition that they have to take that out. I don't know. I'm just speculating because that's all we've got left with. Because as you know, RTD, when he gets awkward questions, just says, I don't know. 73 yards, you can make up what you think the lady was saying to everybody to make them run away. Can't be bothered telling you. John Uden, growing up, I always wanted to see all the sirens, not just Sutekh. And John, I was thinking we might get Horus back or something like that. Making Sutekh a Titan was the wrong move. He could already hurl planets into the fire. And this is what I mean. It just starts, let's throw Jupiter at and let's play snooker with the planets. It just starts to get blooming silly. Cybermat Strikes. Riddle of the Sirens. If I was to ask Moffat which era was the best, one button wipes the Chibnall era, the other the RTD era. Which button would you indicate? Oh, it's a really interesting question. The trouble is I think I like my analogy of the nesting consciousness. The nesting consciousness has got its roots and tentacles everywhere. So if you took out the Moffat era or took out the Chibnall era, unfortunately, its roots have got into parts of the undergrowth of Doctor Who now, the foundations of the Doctor Who. That's the problem. Hartnell's Ghost. Brendan, returning to your Zabi camera comment, watching as a child on original UK transmission, that Zabi was coming out the TV to get me. Exactement. As kids, I don't know if I saw the hand behind Sutekh as a kid. Do I care? No. I know he was there. I don't care. It didn't change my viewing of what ends up being one of the best stories in Doctor Who. No, we interpret what we do as kids, and sometimes we factor them in with our imagination. I don't think we need the thought police to get in on it. Doug Sims, did they put a CG tear in Tom Baker's eye to show his vulnerability? I don't think so. I don't think so. Bobby D, 75. Besides perfecting special effects, George Lucas influenced having origin stories as well. And, yeah. And then Chattanooga Choo Choo Laser. The problem with having god enemies is they can't be dealt with through normal means. Exactly. Then you have silly resolutions like playing musical chords and playing catch. Yeah, that John Lennon suddenly plays. I'm not musical, so I'm going to make up a chord probably. You know, F sharp or something. And then, he's defeated. Oh, I hate all that. Now, we've got to be fair. In Old Who, we had reverse the polarity of the neutron flow and stuff like that. We know it's almost like an in joke. And I'll have to make, what's the one in Trial of a Time Lord that Pip and Jane Baker came up with? There was some amazing lines with that megabyte modem thing. Remember, it was like a disco lights. It was, you can buy so much of it if it makes kind of sense. What I always said to the kids when I was teaching them English, and I said I read all the Target books, and I said it taught me English to a big level, because all the psychobabble, all the scientific mumbo jumbo in Doctor Who, really, I had to learn the prefixes and the suffixes, because to learn what there was a logic within what was being said by Robert Holmes, Terence Dix, and everybody, and Malcolm Hulke. They were there, but you had to go, so what does that prefix mean? What does that noun mean? What does that mean? And you had to work it out. And that's why I learnt my English, because the Target books give you the dialogue and then give you time to go, right, I'll have to know, what does that mean? Now, I don't know. It just seems to be babble, really. Yeah, we've got that one, sorry. Well, Dada Debasa, good to see you. I know Benjamin Cook, and I don't like doing any kind of crusade against anybody. Benjamin Cook, my first proper experience of Benjamin Cook was through The Writer's Tale, which I think was Benjamin Cook's idea. And if you're talking about being a custodian of Doctor Who, or you want to know the behind the scenes, that Writer's Tale is gold dust. And it's a clever idea, because you've got a showrunner who's busy, but you want to get his thinking. And to do those emails to and from each other and texts to and from each other tells an amazing story. It's like the Watergate tapes. It's absolutely brilliant. And so that was my first proper introduction to Benjamin Cook. I know he'd done bits with the Doctor Who magazine. But, I read the articles. I don't go, oh, God, it's written by so-and-so. Oh, but the book, I thought, interesting idea. And if you ask the right questions, you get some interesting answers. And you read The Writer's Tale with RTD and Benjamin Cook, and it's fascinating, actually. So I don't like to lay into people, but why is Benjamin Cook, who, okay, I assume what we say is he's a journalist. Why is a journalist who likes Doctor Who, that's why he was doing Doctor Who magazine, why is he editing Old Who? I thought these were specialist jobs. Please don't tell me, you media lovies, that deep down it's just nepotism and cronyism. Please don't feed that beast that's in my head now. I suspected people got jobs because of who they knew, and now they pretend the DEI is their great wheeze. But please don't tell me it's jobs for the boys. Oh, because Benjamin Cook was, I think, really a trainee journalist going through Doctor Who magazine. He made his contacts with the stars and the people behind the scenes. They liked the fact that he didn't slag them off, didn't question them too much. That book was successful, and I like it. And now he's an editor of all classic Who when it comes to Tales of the TARDIS. Wow, that's a strange CV jump. PB Props, there is simply no need to edit the spoken word with these updates. It just speaks volumes about who is doing it and why. Edit for time, yeah. Edit for modern day politics, no. That's silly. Because as I said, PB Props, in 20 years, when the politics has moved on and fads have moved on, this era, especially season 1 that's about to finish in 10 or so hours, when that's finished and we see it through a revisionist prism and we've allowed classic Who to be butchered, this area will be decimated. Take out the politics, take out the messaging, take out all those things in the future that may find problematic. I don't think you're going to have much of a show left. I'm being asked what my ratings prediction is. I was surprised that The Legend of Ruby Sunday, which is our only two-parter, and obviously the exciting intro to a finale, did the worst ever. Even though the streaming bit went up, I was one of them. So based on the logic I was applying got busted, I'd have to expect it will be lower than the 2.02. I'd have to. Because if people haven't bought into episode 1, you're not going to get them into episode 2. I mean, the whole point is you can't surely build a bigger audience in part 2 than part 1 because they don't know what the hell's been going on. So I'm one of those. I don't really want this to happen, but I think it might go under 2. Pure historical. The Zarbi camera fluff is one thing, but how would you fix the Vord tripping over in Keys of Marinus? As we say, it's got charm. That's what we say. My biggest problem with Web Planners is maybe the one I'm not going to change my opinion about butchering texts, but the Red Planets maybe could be a bit shorter. But I'll say that's its charm. I have to go slowly. I still haven't finished it. I have to say that for this version, that's it. Pure historical, the megabyte modem, which has dated badly. It's a nice alliteration, but a megabyte modem that's kind of threatening the whole universe, and it looks like some little disco lights. But please don't change it. Don't change it. That's the charm of it. That's the fun of it. Yes, Cybernet strikes ahead of its time. The megabyte modem that didn't turn up for another decade, and now we all just laugh at it. But who cares? Who cares? Yes, well, actually, would you think that Cybernet strikes the writer's tale for this era would be a snooze fest? If they were still telling us what they were thinking, can you imagine if they were doing what they did do with the writer's tale, where RTD is saying to Benjamin Cook, Dot and Bubble has a problematic end. I want to get a racial message in, and I haven't been able to do it so far. I think I could do it in Dot and Bubble. I'm trying to think how to do it. And you get to see that thinking, I don't think I'd be snoozing. I think I might be triggered. By the way, I've still got more examples to show, but the thread, you're alive. You're really good. I'm enjoying this. I don't want to say that 3 times like Mrs. Thatcher. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. You're sacked, love. Chattanooga Choo Choo Laser. Sorry, I've given you a nickname now. The worst part of the PC changes in modern media is no regular person really cares about these things. It really is just the writers and showrunners and media that are making issues out of nothing. You see, the only time we really saw it was the Oscars or maybe the BAFTAs. When you got an actor or an actress who got on stage and after thanking their mum and dad, God, if that was in, and Sutekh, and and then thanked the cleaners and the caretakers in their first theatre job, and then they suddenly said, "And we want world peace." And then they suddenly started talking about I've adopted a child from Malawi, and he was oppressed as a boy, but now he's a girl, and you get all these speeches, don't you? Yeah, but now it's everywhere. Rachel, you'll see her on my channel on Wednesdays and on Sundays, and then she does 22 streams between. She doesn't sleep. 2.01, she says, I'm not expecting much more than 5 for The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Yeah, I know. And I know you're saying it in consolidation. Right. Well, while we're all here, and we're talking about everything, aren't we? I mean, it's just inspired us to talk a lot of Doctor Who, which I have no problem with. So here's another bit that was taken out. All of this. Sutekh, again, it's part 4. Sutekh the florist charged with explosives, count to the 5th row, blah, 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 helping Marcus Scarman out. Then you had the Doctor and Sarah saying this is like the city of the Exelons. He says, don't touch anything. And we get all the puzzle stuff taken out. That's quite a weighty bit of scene, that. Rachel's our expert on acting, and she might say that would take about a minute and a bit out. I don't know, a bit longer maybe. The other thing that they did, if you remember, press my right button. Remember, no reset buttons on our channel. The only button I'm bothered about is the subscribe button. No reset button. Subscribe. Reset. Subscribe. There was a kind of grudging respect for the classic Pyramids of Mars, because did you notice when there was a bit of scene that was just action, or the dialogue had finished and there was still a bit of action to go, they wove on top of that action the dialogue from a close scene to steal 10 seconds, to steal seconds all the time. They didn't have the heart necessarily to cut it out. I found that interesting. It's a shame they didn't do that with the Daleks. I just wondered why if you really wanted to do the spirit of Classic Who, the big reveal either came at the end of episode 1 as the cliffhanger, or just into part 2, which is why you were dying to see the next Saturday to see what the monster or villain looked like, because all you'd seen is a warty hand or something, or just heard their voice. And Sutekh was in that category. But as you all know, if you saw the Tales of the TARDIS last night, what happened? You saw a full face of Sutekh in the middle of episode 1. Why do that? Why do that? That's changing. And somebody say, oh, it's on your scene. It's on your little thing. That's you, as the Nesting Consciousness media lovies, changing the spirit of what was intended. The formula for Classic Who you are changing. I think that's out of order. I don't think that's a yellow card. I think that's a red card and you're off. Seriously. Rachel's shouting now. She's lost it. I think she's had a nervous breakdown. No, subscribe. I'm not shouting, honest. She must be so close. She must. I bet she's over 1,000. She must be doing that for me. So I'll put this up for a second because I always forget. Get us to 800, please. I want to say that in a nice way. If you hate the reset button, please like the subscribe button. Right. So looking back at, are you happy that that scene was taken out? Is that fine? Are you accepting that? That's my question. Then, of course, we mostly got what we expected. Yeah, that's what we mostly got. So I have a series of questions now. A series of questions. Is this loving attention to a classic? You know, first of all, you upscale it, upgrade it. You add a few musical touches just where it's a bit quieter. You just make it slightly tighter in parts because you want people to love it, because you're assuming the people who wouldn't love it would like this slightly faster, nipped version. A nip and tuck Pyramids of Mars. Is this loving attention by fans who adore the show? Or is this interference, as Sutekh would say? Is this a creeping mission statement of tweaking things that sound problematic? Things that you think might offend now, because you might want people to have a safe space. There's no safe space watching Doctor Who. I mean, come on, get a life. You're there to be thrilled. The safe space is your kitchen and your mum and dad are in there making the tea. Sorry, safe space doesn't exist. So, which version do you think it is? So I've got the whole series of questions here to trigger you to get some decent answers so we can have a decent discussion. Is it making it better, and to what end? Because my point is, if you can take a classic like Pyramids of Mars, and they'll say it was loving attention, I know they will. Phil Collinson did an article about it, an interview, and said, oh, the amazing classic. You know, he said all the right things, and I'm not doubting him. He is a Doctor Who fan, so I'm not doubting it. I'm not stupid. But is it loving attention of Pyramids of Mars, or is it suffocation of it with your little mitts coming in? So what's the end? What's everybody seeking in the end who touches this up, who takes it, you know, nips and tucks it? Do they want all Classic Who to look perfect? Then the question is, what is perfect? That's when I get a little bit worried that we're going down the Ken Casey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest road, where nonconformists in 1960s America were put in jails, or nonconformists in America was misfits had to be put somewhere where other misfits were, so that you didn't see misfits on the street. It's a very interesting book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And is this what we're doing? Is this a kind of cultural McCarthyism? We said earlier in our stream today about cancel culture and Alex Kingston saying she disagrees with it. And good for her. But cancel culture is part of that kind of cultural McCarthyism. The witch hunt. Gareth Roberts, I've just got his book, Gay Shame, about, he's been cancelled. Graham Linehan, Father Ted, cancelled. J.K. Rowling, they are desperately trying to cancel her. It's cultural McCarthyism. There is a witch hunt going on. And so my question to you, the thread is this slightly happening in even how they edit and tweak and take out? What do you think? And if you're seeking perfection, what is perfection? Is it superficial perfection? Everything looks good, but it's got no heart. It's got no charm. It's not got no substance. Huh? What do you think? Do you think this is problematic interference? So let's look at what you're saying in our thread, which has been hot to trot today. Let's have a look. I'd got up to the bit where Rachel was telling people to subscribe for me. And while she's done that, which I appreciate, I'll put that up there so it reminds me just to get on with the thread. Chattanooga Choo Laser says, my theory on him taking all the puzzle solving out is because Shooty's doctor doesn't do any puzzle solving. It is out of character for his doctor. He isn't portrayed as being intelligent in this time. No, he's not, is he? He's all shout your mouth off, or get upset, or have a paddy and hit the wall with your fist. Or as Rachel says, she said it on my show and she said it on her own, he's dead behind the eyes, and it's like, I don't know what to do. Who are you? I haven't watched Tales of the TARDIS. Rachel's just telling us, I know we're catching up, hated that straight away, a shot from episode 4. I know. Why do you see? That's just interference for the sake of interference. That's saying I've got a job to do, and if I don't do, is this what's happening? You have to justify your job. We've all had managers who, to justify their job, change everything just for the sake of change. And then a few years later, people says, this isn't working. What we need is what we had before, but they give it a different name. We've all been there. I mean, I've been in public service for 30 years. That's all they ever blooming do. People justifying their promotion. Is this what Benjamin Cook's doing? I mean, if he didn't tinker with a classic, then why pay him? I don't know. Is it just interference for interference's sake? Divan and Dragon, losing the multi-chapter classic story seems to hurt the Doctor Who model. I know. Look, let's be honest. When you got an omnibus of Doctor Who in the 70s, I know I'm picking an era. Pick an era when you knew you got an omnibus. I was obviously grateful. And it was like watching an old Carry On movie. There were like treats on TV. But it's not the same as you've actually invested 4 weeks of your thinking time, your sleeping time as a kid, trying to work out what will happen next to the Doctor and how do they get out of the perils of Pauline. It's that kind of thing. It's based on the book, I was going to say Book Roger, the Flash Gordon model, isn't it? You'd go to the cinema, you get an episode, and those kids, a week later, would go back and see what happens to Buster Crabbe. And I have to say, even in the 70s, when they repeated those Book Rogers every morning of the summer holidays in Britain, it worked. The clay people, all that stuff. And again, was I bothered about the effects? I have to say, I loved the yarn. It was very Terry Nation, I always call it. It was like a full-scale adventure. And, 1 week it's clay people, next week swamp people. I'm making it up now, but that. And I think on any omnibus of anything, ruins that. You know, remember the EastEnders omnibus on a Sunday, and if you'd watched EastEnders during the week, and then you get your duff, 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 which is very important to EastEnders, their version of a cliffhanger, suddenly no duff, duff, duffs. It's an omnibus. It's just a catch up, but it's ruined the spirit of the show, and it's also a scam just to get more ratings, because they did it with Neighbours, didn't they? It was on at 1:30, then it was on at 5:30 on the same day, so they could double up the figures and say Neighbours was a success. When actually, was it only us lot who were watching it? I do not know. So yes, it is interesting, and I agree with you, Divan and Dragon. It just takes the heart out of Doctor Who, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. Why RTD won't go back to that? And I think my latest discussion about RTD, this one, when I said the problem with Russell T Davies, it's the same spin cycle of plot. As you know, Divine and Dragon, I made a big play on there about that kind of idea. So, where are we here? Let's have a look. I've zoomed along, Naughty Noble. So, the bit of the Doctor working out the puzzle was removed from the original VHS. I can't have had the original VHS. I'm trying to think. I didn't get them everything straight away, obviously. Money. Complete episode models in you who have a place, but they change narrative dynamics. I just don't think they grab. We have rebuilt an audience. We'll soon know whether we can go from 2.02 higher because it's episodic, because everyone's got so excited and the nation's talking about it. And everybody's really excited about how does the Doctor defeat Sutekh. And all biddies at the bus stop in the village are saying, who's Sutekh? He's a Titan now, you know. You know, no. There's no talk of it. No talk of it at all. So it's not building. Rachel, Pyramids of Mars was unusual in setup because you knew it was Sutekh from episode 1, but the face reveal doesn't happen until episode 3 and it still works. I mean, let's go back. Classic Who was brave in many respects. You know, give the kids what they want, scare them. But actually, it was almost like they kept you, you know, on the edge of your seat. And that's why Earthshock does it so well. And I was a bit older then, but by God, you jump. In fact, you still jump now because the musical beat works. That as soon as you do that quick cut to the Cybermen and the clan of the metallic music, you do instinctively jump. That's what you want for the kids. I say the kids, and the dads and the mums are sat there thinking this is great entertainment, keeps the kids shut up. And then for the rest of the week, you're going, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I think they're missing the point that kids are allowed space to speculate, space to draw. My primary school books are just over there. My mum found them. I've got not every one, but obviously I loved English and Star Trek and Doctor Who. Stories are in there, but you can see where I've been inspired by episode 2 of something, and I'm writing out what's going to happen next. I've got whole stories based on the Planet of the Spiders because that really got me. The Buddhism, you know, when they're on the mat, and as a kid, I always thought they were swearing. And as I saw that, I used to rehearse it. It's in one of my exercise books when I was 12. And the spider and the cobweb, that had such an imprint on my brain, rehearsing what happens the next week, then knowing the spiders within Sarah, all that stuff. But if you just give them it all at once for a 45-minute blast, you have missed a trick, because you win hearts of kids. Look at all those kids who queue for the next Harry Potter book. They've waited a year. They've waited ages, and they will queue. They're almost salivating at the mouth. What happens to our Harry Potter team? That's what you want. Don't give people everything all at once. That's why I'm almost against this binge watching philosophy, because some stories, some genres are served better by the episodic. I'm not saying binge watching is bad. I'm just saying that Doctor Who, I think, is not served well by it. It misses the point of it. Talented Winch, Ayan, I saw you arrive. They need to leave Classic Who the hell alone. You could be shooty here. The hell alone, baby. Darren Bradley, good to see you. No, there's a guy currently upscaling classic Doctor Who to 4K. Oh, Pyramids of Mars being the latest. Contact John the White for more information. Is it John the White? Okay, that's interesting. PB props. Let's be honest. Sometimes the classic episodes did have an issue with pacing. But it is what it is. These new edits are fine, but we still have the originals. And yes, Rachel's saying, I assume you're talking about J.K. Rowling, Dada Debaser. J.K. Rowling has far too much money to be cancelled, and Alleluia. And yes, you are talking about J.K. Rowling. Right, let's just start from scratch. World building. And no mug. She has built a whole franchise and she's kept her hands on it. Good for her. And I think one of the worst... has it happened in Doctor Who? I hope not. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But when the actors have turned on J.K. Rowling, like Daleks and Genesis turning on their creator, it's gut-wrenching. And I'm trying to think in Doctor Who, has anyone turned on, you know, some of the people in the past who ran Doctor Who? Because that's awful to gut the franchise from the inside, to turn on each other. Come on, it's so blooming obvious. Without J.K. Rowling, there's no Harry Potter. So to be able to be in that position of indulgence and power, to suddenly turn around and say, we're calling you out, but thanks for the platform. Wow. And I just hope that never comes to Doctor Who. And if I've missed something, tell me, where Doctor Who is eating away at Doctor Who and slagging off a previous era. That would be terrible. That would be the end of the franchise. You'll have to tell me. I know you've texted us, but tell us where you're traveling. I think my holiday is September in America, but I still haven't booked it. We're trying to work out whether we go New York, Toronto, Detroit, kind of, you know, Boston, kind of around there. Frank, I don't think it does any damage, as the original version is still there to watch any time. Frank, I get your point, and I'm not challenging it. But when my question's just slightly different. Why do they feel the need to do it anyway? Some people have mentioned pacing. Let's call everyone separately. Pyramids of Mars is good. It works. Pacing wise, I don't think there's much there there's not much fat to cut. So why do it? That's the question. Why do it? And I haven't heard a decent answer to this yet. Remember, I taught 11 to 18 for 30 years. They can be an iPhone all night. Their parents go mad about it, so they can concentrate. They can be gaming for hours and hours and hours, non-stop sometimes. They can watch 3-hour movies, and they can concentrate in class. So why is this obsession with, apparently there's somebody out there who we have to serve who can't cope with pacing issues of something from a different era? Please, I really haven't heard an answer to that, because it doesn't make sense, because these kids can cope with stuff. And there was a kid in my class a few years ago, and I gave all my VHSs to in the end, you know, the proper ones, because I'd got the DVDs by then. And he adored Doctor Who. He was 13, and I found out at the end of one of the English lessons, and once I knew, and he said, oh, my dad the other day got me The Invasion. Yeah, now remember, 13-year-old, and I'm talking about in the 2000s, and The Invasion, and he was, you know, when you see the eyes light up, and he was, oh, wow, and that was 60s Who. I'm sure there's pacing issues in that, because it's a long story. Now, in the end, I had such great pleasure that now and again, at the end of a lesson, when everybody went, I just got out my bag an old VHS and said, do you want to take that home and keep it? It's all right. I don't need it. And this kid's eyes, it was like Christmas Day every few lessons. They have no problem with pacing. They have no problem with old Who. Some people seem to be embarrassed by the program they actually like. And that's why I'm saying, what is the messaging? What is the thinking behind this? Because I don't understand. Farsight, hi all, just subscribed. Oh well, come to the party. We don't do 5. You know, like the American channels, the very, very, very big ones. Who's, you know, £10. Here's a question. Oh yeah. I always think, God, I'd feel so bad if I did that. Hi all, just subscribed. It just occurred to me, by making Sutekh a Titan, Davies has managed to swap Sutekh from Egyptian to Greek mythology, or make a mishmash of the two. Oh, very good point. I as I was preparing this, I didn't quite pin down my Titan definition stuff. So thank you for that. Again, one line, one word actually changes things. And then you think, why? Carlo Belton, have you subscribed? Sorry, a cheeky question. You know, if you like reset buttons, subscribe. I think it's streamlined for consumption. They believe people don't have attention spans. Look at the modern writing now, it's basic. Yeah, this is what I mean. But is anyone telling them? You know, feedback. I think in one of my, we've done a few streams. I always mock and take the mick out of Rachel, but I think we've been streaming all the time. But in one of the streams, I've mentioned that, gosh, if you cancel something online, can you give us feedback? I use Restream to do this. And if I talk to them about something technical, because I am only an English teacher, they're always saying, what did you think of our chat today? Please give us marks out of 10. Everybody is obsessed, as you know, with feedback, except Bad Wolf and RTD. Because who are the people they're talking to who says everything has to be short and snappy, simplistic, babyish, puerile, make no sense, on a bit of Doctor Who that makes no sense, just have the music writ large. And you know what? While they're trying to be clever asses about it, I will say to you again, The Legend of Ruby Sunday is a theatre production. You have the stage where Susan Twist is doing her speech. You've got the unit main building room, and then you've got the time window. And it was a lot of static, standing, and dialogue. And that's with big budget. And yet Horror Fan Rock, static, in a different way, for a reason, because it was a siege kind of story, did it so much better and moodier. And the other thing, can I put it out there? Shall we put it out there? Let's be honest. RTD, when he does do a cliffhanger, seems to have a problem with cliffhangers. He has to put about 5 together. And it's like, oh, in the end, you're going, oh, all right, the cliffhanger. Yeah. Can we get over it now, please? You're actually now waiting for the to be continued. Stolen Earth, one of my favorite ever RTD first parts. You know, Sarah in the car, the regeneration. There's other ones there. There's the Torchwood mob. You know, how many cliffhangers do you want, RTD? You seem to not like episodic, but by God, when you give yourself the indulgence of a cliffhanger, you give us 5. And somehow I think that's misdirection. I'd be interested what you all think in the thread, and what Rachel thinks as an actress, that what's the audience supposed to think? Is this kind of multiplying the peril effect, or is it diminishing the peril effect? Are you worried more about Sarah in the car facing Daleks, or are you more bothered about the regeneration of David Tennant, or are you more bothered about our Torchwood team under attack? What is it? Or do you go, oh my God, everybody's dying? I think it diminishes it, dilutes it. And I think as a writer, surely, and as a director, you have to think, what is our scorecard here? What's our main cliffhanger? What's the main thrill? And how do we drive our resources to show that? Yeah, you didn't know. When Neighbours was on, you never knew what time of it. Yeah. And at university as well, I was at uni, and you know, you finished a lecture and you went straight to watch Neighbours and catch up. I mean, you know, it was high stakes. This was on at 8 p.m, says Rachel. Was that a schedule conflict, or because they don't think it's suitable for kids anymore? It's a good question. I really don't know what is going on. I do remember, I'm sure you do as well, RTD, Rachel, that he did give an article interview months ago, and he said it's not, Doctor Who's not for kids anymore, didn't he? He did say that. And then he did Space Babies. SG, hello. I like that they reuse some of Earthshock's music in Attack of the Cybermen. Yeah. I can see what you're saying. But I suppose it was 80s era reflecting 80s era, and it was still John Nathan Turner reflecting on his own era. I suppose that's almost more in-house. This just seems a little bit more dodgy because you're now the showrunner, producer, and you are hijacking, sitting on top of another era and tinkering with it like the toy maker. I'm not convinced you really should do that. Graham Dawson, remember the good times, school holidays? You would watch Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, Laurel and Hardy, White Horses, that railway one, Champion the Runder Horse. There was always a lassie. There was always a cartoon like Marine Boy. We had the dolphin now and again, Flipper, wasn't it? The Banana Splits. Oh, the Banana Splits with the Tra-La-La song, hello, excuse me, and the psychedelic sets. I love the stupidity and the surrealness. They'd lift the bin and there's like girls singing, la, 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 and you put the bin lid back. I loved all that. Mark the Vicar, Sutekh is female and probably a lesbian. Where's that come from? We'll soon find out. Sidemat Strikes, delayed gratification is character building. And I have to say, sorry, my Sunday sermon is coming early. When RTD is very bothered about the dark times everybody faces nowadays, he talked about the dark times and everybody's having emotional challenges, and it's very difficult out there. So I want to write a doctor who reflects that and who is for them, right? So you're not helping by showing an emotionally fragile doctor. You're not helping build resilience. You're not helping build patience. You're not helping nurture lots of really good virtues from the great virtue signaling God. Forget all the other gods and titans. The God of virtue, RTD, should remember there are other virtues like patience, like building a backbone, like building and nurturing your imagination. Try that one. Dada Debasa, that style of writing feels abandoned. Modern writing comes across as very dumbed down now. Robert Holmes was in as superiorly compared to RTD. And I hate doing that, really. I do. But you are right. And I can use all my English teaching prism. The script had far higher quality of lexicon. It had a far higher quality of a tighter structure. They knew what they were doing. And actually, on top of that, because entertainment came first, but they had researched. When he introduced in The Time Warrior, the Sontarans, he had built a backstory before he bothered to write it. In this era, we don't seem to have any backstories. We just kind of hijack somebody else's idea. Chattanooga Choo Choo Laser. I do not understand the outage with J.K. Rowling. I have not actually seen her say anything terrible. Quite right. When people go on and you actually look at her texts, what is the problem? And isn't it a problem trying to silence a woman in 2024? Not quite sure if that's a good look. Farsight. Davies isn't even 1% of the writer Holmes was. Eastland Burkholder, disposable TV, not to be watched again. This is the problem. We're churning out stuff that, come on, everybody who's got enough about them with Doctor Who and has seen classic and new Who, what do you watch the most? Stolen Earth, I've mentioned a few times. I could easily watch Midnight again if I just put the right thing on, or turn left. Utopia for a certain moment. I think you know which bit. With the Chris Eccleston era, I quite like the build up to the end and the Dalek episode. But as you can see, I'm sounding my modals are quite weak. I'm not saying definite, certain now. Whereas, and I will be honest, I've just said in the streams this week, we've just finished watching The Android Invasion. And it was the quieter one and maybe the cheaper one in a very, very strong season, wasn't it? And that I haven't watched a lot. I haven't watched Underworld for ages, and I've got the season 15 Blu-ray there, and I just haven't got through it yet. Yeah, I mean, Leisure Hive I've not gone back to much, you know. Leisure Hive was was a challenge to me. That the style change was a shock. Now, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with JNT updating the show, but I've got to say the truth is, at the time, it was a challenge to me, and the change in the music, which I got used to. But so in a funny sort of way, I never really revisit Leisure Hive. So I've got to be honest, but I go more for classic than I do New Who, and I don't know whether it's because they're written for the now, and then why do a repeat? Then it's more consumer nonsense, really. Excuse me. Eastland Burkhold again. You must talk over the head of a child. It is like teaching a sport and throwing the ball right at the kid's hands. Yeah, you've got to let them learn. You coach them to do all the sports skills. You don't just whack the ball at them and just keep making them play football or whatever the sport is. You do work on the tricks, and as they work on the tricks, they develop things, and then you put them into tiny simulations. But you don't just shout at them in the middle of a football match and assume they're going to learn that way. And this is what we're doing, really. I mean, if RTD has anything about him, he should be doing kind of workshops. I know he does help people, depending on who he likes, but proper workshops to help people out. Real fans will take the time to dig through anything Doctor Who. I don't think that's who they are after, though, says Cybermat Strikes, who'll be one of my panelists on Sunday at lunchtime. Remember, on Sunday, we do our first reactions at midday, and then at 7 p.m, we do our full forensic obliteration or tribute to the episode. And they are two very different shows. And obviously, I haven't a clue what's going to be on tonight and tomorrow. But my God, I think there'll be a lot of chat. So please join us on Sunday, and please subscribe. Barry, I remember episode 1 of Pyramid so well. It was my father's second wedding. Came home after the service and watched it with my new stepbrother and stepsister. Oh gosh, there's an awful lot of things that you've attached to that. Yes, I know that. I can see why that would be remembered big time. Gosh, yeah. Oh gosh, did they like Doctor Who, by the way? Is it something you could actually bond over? The Talons of Wayne Cheyenne. Did anyone else notice that when Harriet was possessed and doing her speech, she also mentioned the Malice and the Mara? Season 2. I think I showed in my stream yesterday. Let me just press the right buttons. The predictions one. The discussion about the Harbingers, we're not all over. If you go back to that Miami set where they're outside a lovely kind of 50s style cinema, and Verada Sethu's there, and there's Shooty and all the rest of it. It says the Harvest Bringer on the cinema titles, and then I've got another shot somewhere where it does say Harbinger. So the Harbingers are in season 2. So the gods are in season 2, or the Titans are in season 2, and so I dare say the Trickster, maybe the Mara, but didn't it say Mara, the gods of peace or something on that one? But yes, you've got them all. I agree with you. The Malice, everybody was mentioned. He is just a kid in a sweet shop, RTD. He must have had this great moment, this watershed moment when Disney said, we're in it. And he was only going to do those 3 specials with Tennant and Tate. And suddenly somebody said, we'd like you to stay. And he thought, oh, heck, I haven't thought about this. And then he quickly thought, fantasy. I could have every god going. Oh, that would keep me going for 3 or 4 series. Pensions written. Is that cynical? But that's what you do wonder, because it's got no rhyme or reason. Lex Kane's TV and movies reviews, plus with tomorrow episode being on 6:40-ish, it's got a lot of competition as 2 football matches on ITV. Think it's going a lot lower than last Saturday. Yeah, I don't know what the matches are. Sometimes it depends, doesn't it? Because you can get so sick of them. And it's sunny at the moment. I'm streaming, you Aussies. Well, it's sunny in Britain. It hasn't been sunny in Britain for ages. Eastland Burkholder. It reminds me of this better. The memory berries, the stolen dramatic scenes. Doug Sims, you see, the banana splits was brilliant. Danger Island. Can you remember the Lost Islands? The song, people slag off my intro for the saloon for 2 minutes, but the Lost Islands, It went on forever. It was a whole song. It was almost like Roger Whittaker-ish. The lost the kids in the shipwreck and and it went on and on. And then you saw this hooded figure, very Doctor Who-ish hooded figure. John Yulden, he doesn't work. They will have Hercules turn up soon. Oh, you see, I watched Clash of the Titans and I did Greek mythology at school, like a lot of you did, and all the rest of it. I'd like them in history. I like doing the Egyptians and all that stuff. I don't seem to like, really, when you got the Simbads and that. I'd watch them, Odysseus and all that stuff. I like the stories, but I just don't like my Doctor Who touching them. And the times, is it the Time Monster? When we've dabbled. I didn't even like us dabbling with Atlantis. I don't like us dabbling with that kind of thing. Now, that might just be me. I'm just telling you the truth. But I just don't like it. I just like the adventure sci-fi stuff. Frank, I guess the producers of the show think that the younger audience have shorter attention spans and modern TV is faster paced, so they are, I imagine, trying to hook them that way. Well, let's hope that they get it right. It's just that the figures, as you know, are not saying a word about that. Pete, Den Cat. Sorry, kids, but all this hate train BS is so tiresome. Can't you allow yourselves to be entertained? Sure, this new season is flawed, but it's way better than a vast majority of Classic Who. Right, everybody on this channel is allowed an opinion. If you've watched any of my streams from the beginning, this is my 88th show in 6 months. I am very open-minded, but I have found this season, Pete, has got me very frustrated. And I am anything but honest. I am honest. If you can give me some examples of give me an example of a couple of episodes from this season that are better than some in Classic Who. Now, yeah, I've mentioned ones I've just criticised. I hope you've realised that. I criticise some Classic Who and I criticise New Who. I love Classic Who and I've loved some of New Who. Have you heard me talking about Midnight? Have you heard me talking about Turn Left, Utopia? Have you heard me talking about Stolen Earth? Have you seen my review of Rose? Have you seen my review of The 11th Hour? If you do look at that, then you can take half of your sentence out and desist from being so silly and actually inform yourself before you just go on some sort of rant. I try avoid ranting, but I normally, from my position, will have studied it, researched it, and prepped it. If you want to have a go at me and my thread, have a look at some of my streams. You now go away and have a look at my reviews on Rose, Power of the Doctor, and everything, and then decide whether what you've said is worthy of any comment. Genesis of the Daleks has more storyline than The Legend of Ruby Sunday, says Lex Kane. You said it, not me, because some people think we were being nasty people. I have no problem with a debate, but you need to debate me with some information and some evidence and some clarity. I expect it of my students. I expect it of anybody. And I think this thread is about that. We are open-minded. We are actually open-minded. Sometimes our criticisms might sound strong. That doesn't mean we rant every week. It just means we are highly disappointed. And I have to say, are we allowed as BBC license payers to be able to criticise? And if you, Pete, were on earlier, I made a very strong point that all public service and loads of companies out there want our feedback. Why is it that the BBC don't want our feedback if it's negative or says this is not the Doctor Who we wanted? And don't slag us off for being allowed to have a voice, because we are the oppressed, we are the voiceless, and we're not the ones in power. So, stop slagging off people who actually have found a space, our safe space, to say something. Farsight, I think he's actually cheapened any classic villains by lumping them together like this. None of them were meant to be the same. Yeah, I know. Individuality, conformism. You've got two things going on at once. It's ridiculous. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to see, because we will probably be concluding in a minute. Now, I always give people a chance, Pete. Perhaps a better way forward for the Whoster is to bring back 4-episode story arcs, 2 story arcs per season, leading to an overarch. Well, that's better. Pete, can I just say, I have said this. RTD has had some really good ideas, but he doesn't then drag them out over a whole season. And that would have been a cleverer way. The Death Star, for example, in Star Wars, if that was episodic, I mean, properly episodic, like Doctor Who TV, That would be a whole season of how you get the secret plans, how you actually, that sort of thing is a season. So when he had the Crucible in season 4, where Davros was, that's a season. Instead of everything's rushed at the end because he wants a big finale, Sutekh hasn't been in it before last week in this season, but the Harbingers have. Why didn't he just have lots of lovely subtle bits build into Sutekh slowly? I think it would have paid off better. I think it really would have worked. And I think sometimes slow down. If you've got a good idea, dig down into it and world build. Eastland Burkholder, we need good writing, Pete. The episodic or arc question, or arc question is not as important as people say. Rachel, still growing this out there for Retro Doc. Verado Sethu is the new Susan. Yes, I can buy into that. So my theory can join that theory quite nicely, because basically Caroline Ford, Susan, will do the big sacrifice. So it'll be a brilliant scene where she has to regenerate, and then we get the Verado Sethu. I can buy that. I can buy that completely. Is that good? Barry, there's a burgeoning rise in right-wing ideology happening all across Europe, spearheaded by youngsters. Yeah, I've seen that. Because if people push back on anything too far, you will get the response. Dada Debasa, yes, Harriet described the Mara as the god of beasts. Oh, is that with the god of beasts? Right. I thought peace. I was wondering about that. I thought that's a bit of a hell of a juxtaposition. Cyberman, I do. I liked Underworld's playing with Greek mythology. It was Jason and the Argonauts, wasn't it? Was it? Or Jason and the Golden? Yeah, it was one of them. Talking and doing this at the same time. Sometimes you say stupid things. So, Pete, we've calmed down now. It would give the stories more time to evolve more naturally instead of everything crammed into a 50-minute finale. As for writing, City of Death is terrible. You're allowed to say that. I would call it camp. I do enjoy watching it. I do what is it the end of episode 2 or 3 when he's in the doorway, and just the timing and the rhythm of it. Now there is a campness to it. I will say that Arc of Infinity and City of Death have some filler where they're running around to justify the budget going abroad. Of course it does. Although it did give Dudley Simpson a damn good excuse at last to do a longer piece that is beautiful. Beautiful. Rachel's just reminded me, being my police officer in the thread, please remember it is okay to not like something and say so, and to like something and say so. And, Pete, I've shown now 3 messages by you. I will always respond, but I just don't like people being slagged. That's all. Eastlyn Burkholder. My opinion, all lasting entertainment is based on characters that viewers boo or cheer for, and plot lines partly based on the whims, desires, needs of that character. Retro Doc, he typed 40 last night. He was on Hours on Wednesday night, and he's just appeared. Hello. I was nearly going to ask you to come on, but I thought, no, the hours are ridiculous. Just an observation, but an observation without insult might help. That's where we're going with that one, right? As you've heard me today saying I don't really like to slag off Benjamin Cook. I don't really like to slag off RTD, and I will give the merits too. There's no need to do, insult. There really isn't. Pete, I would never watch the current stuff ahead of Classic Who. The current stuff is awful. And again, Farsight, give us examples. You know what I mean? Examples always work. So, hello, Terry, TARDIS Spider. I'm just seeing who else. And if anyone's got any other questions, this has been on fire today. And I've got no moderator, so I'm really... I'm really caught. So, Eastlyn Burkholder, I like Tom Baker melodrama. It's camp, it's low budget. Tom has to stop and say, did you hear anything? Because the corridors are too short, really. Lex Kane, I think Gatwa, very human in last week's episode, punching and screaming, not very Time Lord of him. To me, it just had that kind of American blockbustery vibe, the wounded hero type thing. I find it tiresome. I find it un-Doctor Who. I find it unnecessary for the plot where we're going with this. Why are we stuck on this sarcophagus for ages? I don't know. But yeah, I don't really know why we're doing that. So I asked a couple of questions. Have we got the answers? Should they leave alone? We have all enjoyed or not in Blu-ray collections when, if we have always said, oh, I like that story, but that really stood out. For example, Kinder and the snake at the end. Did you applaud and like the Blu-ray change that snake sequence just to kind of make Kinder digestible? Is that acceptable interference and change? So when you allow that, we're on the spectrum, aren't we? What do we allow? What shouldn't be touched? Because I just thought there were moments in Pyramids of Mars. I just thought, why bother taking that line out, the Victorian Albert? Why bother just, the force field had those little kind of markers, and they added the green light. That's acceptable. Was it needed? I don't really think so. The force field had a wobble effect that wasn't in the original. Does it add to it, or I don't know. I felt as though there was some justification for your job, really. I can't knock it. You added to the effect. Whether you did it or not doesn't change much. But is it acceptable? Come on, Thread. Are we allowing this? Are we allowing from now on, like we have with the Blu-rays, if there's a story that a lot of us overall tend to like, but it has a moment that's almost embarrassing or difficult, we tinker with it. I've given examples of the snake in Kinder. I've given the example of the UFO in Dalek Invasion of Earth, and I've given the example of the Rutan in season 15. Are they all acceptable changes? And if you accept that, do we then therefore have to accept that other editors will think, I changed that, I changed that? It's just that where I think it goes too far is, why did we need the Logopolis music? That just seemed weird. Oh, and on the Logopolis music, it was the moment when the Doctor said where he came from, and they cut out Casterbarus. Did you see that? Why did we cut out Casterbarus? Why? Gallifrey was mentioned, the coordinates were taken out, and Casterbarus was taken out. Now, because RTD is obsessed with this foundling thing and helping out the timeless child Chris Chibnall narrative, why did we need... Remember, somebody has pressed a button and decided they needed to take Casterbarus out. Why? Why? Us Doctor Who fans know that it's Gallifrey and the constellation of Casterbarus. I don't know the coordinates, but Casterbarus. So what's the significance? What, was stealing a second to take it out? Why? What's everybody's theories on that? So you are responding to my questions. So Gary, as long as the originals are included in the collections, I can change what they want for an extra version. I can just ignore it. Yeah. It's just that when I thought we accepted that you do change when it's just something that takes you out of being in the story. It just stands out so much. And I think the snake in Kinder was that example. But don't just change for change's sake. Just don't. No need, is my opinion. Chattanooga Choo Choo Laser, then when face to face, just fizzle out and look awkward. Lex Kane's TV and movie reviews. I didn't watch Tales of the TARDIS. It should have been Tom Baker in the episode of Tales of the TARDIS telling a story. It was sad to hear they edited some things out. I don't really know where this fits into canon. I don't want it to fit into canon, by the way. Memory TARDIS says no. But I don't know where it fits into anything. That it said in the write-up they were pausing for battle, pausing in the battle. Ruby Sunday and the 15th Doctor, but they were sat around, as I said, they were sat around the Jodie Whittaker mini bit of the TARDIS, and he didn't say much. She didn't say much. It was just like they were saying, what we're going to do. I'm not quite sure how it was even needed, apart from you put in the present Who in with the old Who. It's a bit like in Mark Gatiss's An Adventure in Time and Space. Shooty early on was put into that shot instead of Matt Smith. And it's as if RTD is determined to quickly proliferate Shooty everywhere to say, no, he's the Doctor just like everybody else. The stone walls moving in Pyramids of Mars. I mean, that sound effect I thought was great. It added, I mean, the prop was obviously cheap. So to have that stone sound, yeah. Stone walls on sets that wobble do not repel me from watching if the characters are engaging. Yeah, we did on one of our midweek streams, Web of Fear. And in the Web of Fear, there's a moment when the set really, with Fraser really knocks. I think it's when the nesting consciousness kind of blob is behind the door where the unit are, and Jamie McCrimmon opens the door and then he shuts the door fast, bangs that, and then the whole set wobbles, and you don't care. You notice it obviously, but and Day of the Daleks went from 6 out of 10, 8.5 to 10 with new special effects. Are you there's different bits, aren't there? I tell that, Terry, are you talking about when I watched Day of the Daleks as a kid, when the Daleks came across the field with a couple of Ogrons, was it about 2 or 3 Daleks and about 4 Ogrons? And of course, the special effects added more. But I still didn't think anything, as a kid, it was Daleks. I mean, we've seen in the Dalek episode, you only need one. If you write a Dalek well, you need one. Well, I suppose as a director, you could have maybe not shown a full field with some Daleks in the middle. What you should have done is just had a tighter shot. I mean, they were better in the house. Sadako doesn't like the upgraded effects. I can take or leave them, and I can see times when it will help. It really helped my watching of Kinder. It really did. Eastland Burkholder would prefer the cringe moments to stay in. I call that my euphemism for it got its charm. MAFC, as long as the original story is freely available on iPlayer, I see no issue with small changes. Okay, fair enough. Gary, who's now waking up minute by minute. I did like the new Kinder Snake, the new Ark in Space, yes. The new Crashing Freighter and Earthshock, yes. Good calls. And actually, yeah, because we did Earthshock recently, didn't we? Doug Sims, I love some upgrades and improvements to special effects, even though the old effects had charm. Even as a kid, I would cringe at some, but leave the stories alone. We always have the originals. So I'm getting the vibe that it's allowed, but don't go too far. But as long as you don't touch the originals. The trouble is, the same people then decide, well, yes, we've changed that special effect, and we just need to tweak Sutekh into a Titan. And you know what? I just have a problem with Davros being in a wheelchair. And you know what? While I'm thinking about it, I just have a problem with a sonic screwdriver being a lethal weapon, and kids might shoot holding one. And you know what? I just have a problem with that. And before you know it, that creeping mission is destroying some of your classic characters. That's my problem. But Eastland Burkholder is saying, respect the original crew and creative, keep it original. Dada Debasa, the edits and visual changes are fine as an alternative, but only as an alternative and not to replace the original, like what it has done to the Star Wars trilogy. Yeah. I know there's levels of interference and change. Just make sure you get it right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sadako, for instance, excuse me. I gave a look to the upgraded Destiny of the Daleks effect. Somehow the new Dalek laser didn't feel as deadly or volatile as the original. Yeah. Rachel, pausing before battles. CUK won't be long. Just don't turn to dust. Bobby D75. I watched a feature presentation of Pyramids from the Doctors Revisited. I enjoyed it. No cliffhangers, and it ended around 90 minutes. Are you okay with omnibuses? I mean, I'd take them over now, like I did in the 70s. But I love the cliffhanger bits. I love that screaming sound effect. So Gary, I agree. Change for change's sake is silly, but if it's an effect that arguably should have been done originally, but for budget limitations, the snake, the freighter explosion, I'm fine with that. So we seem to be coming to a conclusion that we will accept so much. Don't ruin the original. Please don't, just do it for the sake of it. You found the original boring, Dave. I think are you talking about Dave the Daleks? MAFC. Personally, I don't think these are canon as such. The memory TARDIS and all the rest of it. Yeah. In my eyes, it's like a liminal space out of the universe. I just don't know where it fits into the story. It just seems weird to me to see them 1 minute under threat and then they're having a chit chat. Robert Sanderson, hello. And my final time today, please subscribe, build them up. Go on, make me feel happy that I've spent 2 hours doing this and building the channel as well. I see no need to change the FX. They make the show what it is, and phenomenal amount of work went into them back in the day. Yes, it's a bit like we English teachers hated Tipex. We hated it. And actually, in many schools, they banned it because as an English teacher, can you imagine if Charles Dickens had Tipex? Can you imagine if William Shakespeare had Tipex? The beauty of seeing the drafting process. And I always, as an English teacher, wanted to see where the kid had crossed out. What word had they crossed out? What was the origin? Where were they moving with it? And so it's a similar point, Robert Sanderson. If you erase the original special effects, you are losing the love, the investment, the skill of those people in the 60s and 70s with tight budgets and terrible constraints. And you are putting something right on top, which is almost acting like Tipex. John Yulden, I never worried about the number of Daleks. My imagination imagined loads more. That's, yeah, I have to be truthful. I didn't see any, I didn't question it. I was about 4. Gary, as for Benjamin Cook doing the editing, why is it? Yeah, Gary, I know you came in later. I know I made that point, and it's a good point. Why is a magazine writer in charge of this instead of an experienced drama editor? I made some very sarcastic points about cherish the thought that our progressives are full of nepotism and cronyism. I thought these skills were really hard for. Pete, I don't think we will see Davros again, to be honest. The Kids in Need clip was set before Mr. Spudface was made to rely on the life support machine. Yeah, that bit is fine as far as it goes. You know, Pete, the bit that was the problem was the Unleash bit. We knew that was before, Davros was injured. I did have a problem with the David Tennant doctor giving him the idea for the sink plunger. I thought that was problematic at so many levels, and no need. But yeah, you're right on the chronology. Doug Sims, I've said it many times, but if Invasion of the Dinosaurs had an upgrade, I would be a happy hooligan. I know, and on Wednesday, I actually had that as my favorite unit story. So it's a moot point. If you haven't seen it, you see what we say. But mine is Invasion of the Dinosaurs. But I did love it, Doug. Even though we had the Chewits monsters. But I know. Your point is fine because we all have our opinions. Gary, yes, omnibus versions have always been around in the US with PBS stations on weekends running all the episodes of a story one after another or running in an omnibus. You lose something though, don't you? You don't say no to them as a kid, especially when they're on, but you know, it has its moment. So I have gone through the Tales of the TARDIS. I've hammered that to pieces in good and bad. You've been live wires, and thank you for that. I know nearly every one of you has subscribed, so I'm sorry for tiring you with me saying no reset button, subscribe button. But of course, you have to ask. You do have to do such things. I do want to grow. I have absolutely enjoyed streaming. This is the 88th show in 6 months, and I was an English teacher, minding my own business. I was on somebody else's stream last year, and then I just like to watch. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind in my retirement to just do something completely different. And now I've ended up with puppets. Now I've ended up with a whole series of puppets. You know, I've got different sets. I love video editing. The whole thing is fascinating, and I'm loving it. And I'm loving the fact that you all want to join in and join us for our discussion of Doctor Who. Really, really enjoyed it. And Terry, you've been on before, and I'll have you on again when we do a John Pertwee special. Never stop building the channel. Let's enjoy it. Those puppets touching grass. I've got the picture somewhere. Yeah, they have hay fever, but yeah, they they feel our pain sometimes. As Doug says, please like and subscribe. Please do. It doesn't hurt. And if you have enjoyed this, it just makes you feel a little bit good. Have you got some of those puppets? I mean, they're only from Amazon, aren't they? I mean, they're nothing special, are they, Pete? I do. There's loads of them, aren't there? I've got 4. And there they are. Touching grass, as Shooty explained. I just thought it was a nice shot. And it was one of our rare sunny days. We haven't had too many. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't know I'd be talking for 2 hours about Tales of the TARDIS. I didn't know I'd be doing a show a week, if only. I tell you what. 2 shows on Sunday, midday, our reactions. I don't know what we're going to say, Pete. I don't know what we're going to say. And we're going to be on again with more of a forensic look at the episode and the ratings at 7 p.m. We have a double dose on Sunday. And you know that we also do shows, saloons. This is a saloon where it's normally just me, normally looking at an article or something behind the news. So please, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to have a late lunch now. Good to see you, Gary, at breakfast time. Good to see the Aussies before bed. That was the Sense Sphere. That was my 88th show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully we enjoy the finale. Bye.